Hi, my name is Walter Bond, former NBA athlete, award-winning Hall of Fame motivational speaker and business coach. And today we're going to talk about the off season. As a pro athlete, I didn't work in my business all the time. Sometimes you took that off-season break and worked on your business to transform yourself as an athlete. The same thing is true in business. You need to transform by taking the off-season. Stay tuned.
Congratulations! You are tuned into Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Show, the #1 podcast for Fortune 500 executives and those who are dedicated to creating a quantum leap in leadership. Your host, Dov Baron. He's an executive mentor to leaders like you, a contributing writer for Entrepreneur Magazine, CEO World, and he's been featured on CNN, Fox, CBS, and many other notable sites. Dov Baron is an international business speaker who was named by Inc. magazine as one of the top 100 leadership speakers to hire. Now, over to Dov Baron.
Welcome, dear friends, fans, and fellow aficionados of leadership excellence. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Leadership and Loyalty Tips for Executives. Let me ask you, what do you need to do to up-level your leadership? Do you need to do more? Do you need to put your shoulder to the wheel? Maybe. What if what you really need is exactly the opposite to that? Well, stay tuned, because that's where we're going on today's show. I'm your host, Dov Baron. I am the Dragoness, and I'm here to assist you tapping into the one thing in your business that changes everything by transforming meaning into action. You can find out more about me, Dov Baron, at dovbaron.com. That's DOVBARON.com. This episode of Leadership and Loyalty is brought to you in part by our other podcast, which is Curiosity Bites. Curiosity Bites is the answer to the question, how do we bring people together who completely disagree? This is exactly what your heart and your soul and your mind have been craving. It's your chance to sit in on some real and oftentimes intense conversations with some of the world's most interesting people. We're talking about astronauts, neuroscientists, philosophers, holy people, quantum physicists, skeptics, entrepreneurs, Grammy Award-winning entertainers, and even some folks who you might completely disagree with and think, oh my goodness, I'm never going to listen to them, and you'll find them incredibly fascinating. Simply go to dovbaron.com and click on Curiosity Bites so you can sink your teeth into Curiosity Bites. As always, we need your help in staying relevant, so please get over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify or iHeartRadio or wherever it is that you listen to podcasts and rate, review, and subscribe to the show, because we always need your help in staying relevant. If you're a new listener, a new viewer, thank you for joining us. Strap yourself in. We're about to go full Monty. And if you're a regular listener, a big thank you to you for making us the #1 podcast globally for Fortune 500 listeners. And we're honored and grateful to be cited by Inc.com as the #1 podcast to make you a better leader. All right, let's strip it down and dive right in. A little while back, I released a video where I said, whatever you think the COVID pandemic is, the truth is that what it is what I called a values pause. It is an opportunity to re-examine where you are in your life and if you're even on the right path. Well, what if you looked at the pandemic as a time given to you, a chance to do what the best athletes in the world do, that is, have an off season, to look at what you've been doing, to see if you are and your business is where you want to be and how you can come back better and stronger. Well, stay tuned, because that's exactly where we're going, because my guest on this episode is Walter Bond. He went from being a reserve to being an NBA athlete, a 6'5", because it's just a little short guy, 6'5" shooting guard who played for the Dallas Mavericks, Utah Jazz, and the Detroit Pistons. Pretty major accomplishments on their own. However, it could be argued that he's become even more successful as a global business leader, a speaker, and a coach. He's the author of several books, including All Butts Stink, How to Live Your Best Life and Eliminate Excuses, and his latest bestseller, which is called Swim, How a Shark, a Suckerfish, and a Parasite Teach You Leadership, Mentoring, and the Next Level of Success. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and help me welcome Special Agent Bond. Walter Bond.
Thank
And
you,
the
Baron.
crowd goes wild, young man. Like you're in the big arena all over again.
Love it, love it. Where's the basketball? I'm ready to go.
It's good to have you here, mate. I really appreciate it. So one of the things I like to start with is, you're in the leadership world, as am I, and I really would love to hear from your point of view. What do you see as the state of leadership today?
Great question. And this is a unique time to be a leader. And I'm a little strange guy. I don't mind adversity. In fact, I think adversity is one of life's gifts. And I think adversity will increase your value if you let it. And so the season we're in right now is really true, seeing if someone has true leadership mettle. And one day recently, I had two CEOs call me the same day. One was Jersey Mike Subs, a big franchise here in America. And instantly, when we went down to the lockdown, he was like, hey, I'm going to pivot. I'm going to do some discounts. And this is my strategy. Thank you, Walter. I'm going to keep it moving because I had done some consulting for him. I had another CEO call me the same day and said, Walter, I was online watching all your videos. And my favorite video you got is the pity party. I'm sitting here throwing a pity party. When's the COVID going to be over? Is there going to be a vaccine? And I saw two very different tales of business leaders who were responding totally different. One was really adjusting in adversity. The other one was really just letting adversity happen to them and had no plan, no strategy. Right now, I think leaders, you got a chance to show what you're made of. Mm-hmm. And through adversity, your value should be able to increase. If you can keep your company moving forward, keep building morale, keeping your team together, this is a great opportunity to make a move on your competition. And as far as I'm concerned, this adversity, assuming you haven't been affected by your health or any loved one. Now, that's a whole other conversation. But sure, if you've not been touched through health crisis or health issues, this has really been a gift of time for you to get your team and your organization to the next level if you know how to respond through adversity.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think that this is a time, everybody's doing great when everything's doing great, right? And the problem is that I think that, and this is the crux of what you're talking about with the off season, is that we look at things and we say, why don't fix it? It's not broken. But that doesn't create agility. That doesn't, and what happens is if you don't look at how you can be agile, then when it breaks, you're out of business, you're done. Rather than having an agility, which is taking as you talk about the off season. And I want to come into that in a great detail as we move forward. But one of the things I want to start with is something I like to ask my guests. In a world where there are so many, quote, influencers and leaders and et cetera, a lot of people are claiming that title. But who is somebody who's been a really major influence on you and on your leadership? Maybe somebody who we would never think of, or somebody we might not know the name of, who's really had a profound impact on you. Who would that be?
Well, it's been several people, and that's why I wrote the book Swim. It's really about the leaders and the mentors and the role that we play. I would start with my dad, who was also my high school principal. And, some people—
Your dad was your high school principal?
Yeah, long story. Dub, I flunked out of my first high school, right? And so I'm the youngest in the family of athletes. My uncle played Major League Baseball. My sister played college basketball, and I'm the youngest and the best athlete. So even though my parents were teachers, I didn't care about school. So they sent me to this top academic school, and I got my lunch handed to me. And my father transferred me to his school in a very low income area. And the beauty of it is that he could coach me and mentor me every morning on the way to school. But I got to see him in his professional environment. Mm-hmm. I saw his executive presence. I saw his charisma. I saw his personality. I saw him pushing teachers and pushing other students. And after a while, Dub, I was like, man, that's my dad. Like, wow, he's cool. And I saw the way the kids responded to him, the way the teachers responded to him. And he drove you. He pushed you. And I'm telling you what, man, he was really transforming lives through his leadership ability and through his leadership skill. And for me, not only did my GPA increase, I really got a bird's eye view into what true leadership really is. And to me, leadership is really about facilitating change and improvement. And if you're just keeping things status quo, to me, you're not really a leader. You're a manager. You know, a manager's job is to keep everything as is. A leader's job is to take us someplace. And if you get in the car with your kids, especially when they're young, before you get to your destination, they're always asking, Mom, Dad, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? They're excited for the journey. And that's, to me, the metaphor of leaders. You got to take your department somewhere. You got to take your company somewhere. Sometimes you got to take a whole industry somewhere. And so my father was the best example I could have had as a kid. But then my college basketball coach, a guy named Clem Haskins, he was like the finisher. You know, he turned a boy into a man, and he kept pushing. He kept driving. He was brutally honest with me, but I knew he cared, right? And so all throughout my basketball career, I had incredible coaches, incredible mentors. I played for a guy named Jerry Sloan, who's the 4th all-time winningest coach in the history of the NBA. Wow. And I'll never forget, I was trying out for his team. And I said, Jerry, we don't scrimmage. Like, we don't actually play basketball. And I was confused, Dub. I'm like, wait, we don't play basketball, so how do you evaluate me? And I said, Jerry, since I feel like we don't scrimmage in practice, I don't think I can show you what I can do. And Dub, this is what he said to me. And it's really a message I give to all of my leaders that we coach and consult. He says, Walter, I already know what you can do, but if you want to make my team, I suggest you listen, follow directions, and execute. In other words, I'm training you on my way. I'm training you on how we play basketball. And I know you're gifted to play basketball, but I got to see, do you fit in with this culture? Are you willing to buy into our way? And I'm telling you, that was, even though I wasn't done playing ball, it's carried through my training and development career. It's helped build the foundation of our training and development company, that we help business leaders develop their way. Like, what is your way? It's not enough to play hard there, Doug. In the NBA, everybody plays hard. You know, football, soccer, hockey, everybody plays hard, but the champion, they have a way. Everyone buys into the way, and everyone executes the way. So all of my coaches in sports played a huge role, but also when I left sports and got into training and development, I sought out mentors. I am always open to mentors. In my last book, Swim, my mentor was Mark Victor Hansen from Chicken Soup for Your Soul. He heard me speak about the shark and the suckerfish, which is really a mentoring coaching metaphor, on stage doing a keynote in front of 3,000 realtors. And he says, Walter, you got to write a book, man. You got something. This is like Who Moved My Cheese, but you got to write it as a parable. Mm-hmm. It was a 5-minute conversation with one of the most prolific authors of any age, any era. And people ask me, well, why did you write Swim as a parable? Because Mark Victor Hansen told me to. I didn't have to overthink it, because that's what good coaching does. I think you got to be a good mentee. You know, we always talk about mentors, but how about being a good mentee? Absolutely. I've always been a good mentee, Suckerfish. And honestly, I've had a bunch of people, from my dad all the way to Mark Victor Hansen, that I've allowed and given them permission to influence me.
That's a really important point. I mean, I say this all the time, is that if you're going to be a great leader, you have to be demonstrating that you are a learner and that you're always willing to learn. And, you know, if Mark tells you to do something, I mean, let's face it, Mark could sell ice to Eskimos. I've known Mark for 20 years, Mark Vidanson. And I was talking to Jack last week, actually, Jack Canfield, his partner, and we were talking about Mark, and said, yep, that was how Chicken Soup became so big, is that Mark could sell ice to Eskimos. But, you know, that's the whole thing, is that, you know, he does see something, and he's very visionary in that way, and he takes things and just expands it out for you. But again, I'm sure he's had lots of those 5-minute conversations with people who never did anything. And that's the point here, Walter, that I love, is that you took that. Now, let's go back a little bit before we get into the book. But I read that you were born in Chicago. So tell us a little bit about your childhood, because Chicago, when you were a kid, was probably a little rough. It's not exactly most of Chicago now, you know, there's got some challenges too. So tell us a little bit about growing up where you grew up and what that was like, and sort of give us an insight into the history of Walter.
If you look at the time frame, my parents were from the South. So my dad was from Tennessee. My mom is a native of Kentucky. And so you're dealing with civil rights. And a lot of African Americans escaped the Jim Crow of the South and came to the Midwest up north for a better way. And so my parents became teachers. They got educated. And so in my home, it was all about education. And my father was a man. He was old school. You be home when the street lights come on. You're going to be respectful. You're going to go to school. And it was like no nonsense. And my father said what he meant, and he meant what he said. My mother was very nurturing, kindergarten teacher. She was just always about getting along with people, being nice, being likable. But a block this way, a block this way, and a block that way. I mean, it was real Chicago. So at an early age, Dove, I really understood the power of fellowship. And when you grow up in a city like Chicago, who you choose as a friend is a matter of life and death. And so we were really taught that at a young age. And my parents always surrounded us with good friends, good family, good people. We were always busy with sports. But I grew up in a family that was chasing the American dream like everybody else. And when the street lights went off, we were home in the house. We didn't talk back. We minded our parents. We didn't have any, unscrupulous friends. And education was key. So for me, when I failed at my first high school, which was a top academic school, these are the smartest kids in Chicago, but I didn't apply myself, right? And I didn't really engage. And this is what I teach my leaders a lot, Dove, is that, in the 80-20 world that we talk about, 20% of your workforce is superstars, right? Yep. They just get it. You hired right. And 20% of your staff or your team may be falling into the weak performer category. But in any organization, that leaves 60%. And I call them the movable middle. That's your C student. And a C student can go either way. Imagine if a leader had the ability, the charisma, built the culture, but we could take a C student and transform them to a B, just a solid B. What would that mean for revenue? You got a big company with 1,000 employees. You move 600 of them from a C category or status of performance just to a solid B. Maybe they never become A performers, but a solid B, that's where your uptick is. That's what we do with training and development to say, hey, leader, you're driving your top 20% to do more. And the truth is, they were high performers when they showed up. If nothing else, you're going to burn those out. How about that 60% that still has potential? How about that C student, that average performer with a little bit more support, a little bit more confidence, maybe a little bit more coaching, a little bit more training? That person has a little bit more potential still left that we haven't tapped into. Let's move that middle, because I was that kid. I was a C student who had a lot of potential.
When you were that kid in that high school and you failed, like you said, your parents were both educators.
Yes.
How did your dad respond to that?
Dove, great question. Very, very encouraging. I was down myself. My father knew his kids. We were all different. And I'm hard on me. And when I flunked out, think about it. I'm the one who's embarrassed. I had to leave all my friends. And my father built my confidence. In the morning, he would wake up and say, hey, Moses, wake up. Talking about the Bible character Moses. Wake up, Moses. Get dressed, Moses. And initially, I'm 14, 15 years old. I'm like, I just flunked out of high school and he's calling me Moses. And it felt odd, that my father, even though I failed, didn't criticize me, didn't browbeat me. He encouraged me. And I teach all business leaders, you know what? You got to build confidence and set expectation. If you want to move a C student, build their confidence and set expectation. Now, after he built my confidence and my confidence came back, we had a real conversation. And this is what he told me, Baron. He says, you're just as smart as my other two kids, but your value system is screwed up. All you care about is sports. This family produces student athletes. As I told you earlier, my parents are from the South. We have major league athletes in my family, and I was the best athlete, but my father had to really grab me and say, look, dude, you're a very gifted athlete, but this family produces student athletes. And I got the message, and he had me write goals down. And that watchful eye, that hands-on mentoring made a difference. And before I knew it, my 2.2 turned into a 2.9. And then I got excited about school. And then I would go to the counselor and say, hey, what do I need to do to get a 3.0? And it carried on into college. And so that moment It was about a year and a half when I went to school with him. That intense fellowship, right? That hands-on mentorship was huge because he built my confidence and he set expectations. Now I'm a thought leader. Think about that. Now I'm a best-selling author, and he's right. I am just as smart as my brother and sister. My value system was screwed up, and he taught me how to get straightened out.
That's awesome. That's beautiful. When we spoke last time, we were talking about your new book, Swim, and you were telling me that borrowed this mouth, that leaders are reaching out to you, confessing that when they read the book, which, as I said, is called Swim, they found themselves in tears. Tell us a little bit about why that would happen. I mean, I know it's a parable, and I know it's not just a how-to book, but what is it, from the feedback you get, what is it that moves them to tears?
Because, every character in the book represents a personality. And, we've been taught in this world, sometimes to be successful, it's all about you getting yours and you being successful. So that represents the character in the book, Paul. But at the end of the book, Paul gets on this boat and goes fishing with a best friend, thinking he's God's gift to the world because he's very successful, makes a bunch of money, but he forgot one thing. To me, in basketball, for example, a great player, Doug, makes everybody else better. That's what a great player does. And I think the same thing is true in business. If you want to be a great leader, it's because you made everybody around you better. I mean, how many people can you look back over your shoulder and say, because of me, that kid went to law school? Because of me, I found this kid with a GED. Now he's our vice president. I just heard that McDonald's just hired a chief diversity officer who got hired as a 16-year-old kid who just walked into McDonald's off the street, but they transformed him. And now he's the chief diversity officer for the whole corporation. Here's the truth. A smart company is a training and development organization at its core. And if that is the truth, we have to be development minded. So many leaders are so busy driving revenue and profit and trying to get the stock price right and are just walking over people, stepping over people, really don't value their human capital as real people, real individuals. They're just collateral damage because I got to get the number right. I got to get to the top. I got to do this. And you don't care about people. Mentorship is a lost art. Mentorship should always be a subset of leadership, which simply says, my job to reach my potential and get this business where it needs to be, I got to be a manager of people. I got to help.
Let's confront that for a minute, Walter, because the viewer, the listener who's tuning in is going, this is a very good point, but I got to make profit, mate. True. I got to make profit. And you're telling me that I have to focus on making my company about being a leadership and development company first. I got to cover my ass. I got to pay the rent first. I got to pay my people first. I got to buy my stuff first. So money is first, money is last. I'm not saying that's true. I'm saying that's the argument. How do you confront that? Because I fully agree with you that if you're not leading, developing, mentoring, and guiding and coaching your people, I think you're dead in the water. But tell me how you confront that challenge.
Well, the truth is that a leader's number one job, if you really think about it, is to build a high-performing team. A leader, the way we teach it, unfortunately, we've allowed leadership training to become about me, the leader, executive presence, own the room, right? Dress to success. And to me, a great leader, it's not about me, the leader. It's about the team. It's about us. And smart leaders understand that it's not about me, it's about us. And the moment you delayer yourself, the moment you let your whole team know, look, it's not about me. You're not serving me, I'm serving you. And my job is to help each and every one of you reach your potential. Dove, I come from sports. It's no different than a coach in basketball. When I was in high school, my coach recruited me based on my potential and not who I was at the time. So his success was based on his ability to develop me and all of my teammates. Right. My coach recruited guys, and we had 7 guys play in the NBA. Why? Because of player development. And since we all got exponentially better through our off-season work, He benefited. Why? Because as each individual had more impact on the court, it made us a better team. So his success was built into player development. I'm telling you, a leader's success is baked into their ability to develop other people. I met a guy named Tyler Ellison. He led a company called Freight Quote. He took them from 18 million to 36 million in 18 months. And he and I did some work together. I did some consulting for his company, and I followed him around for a whole day. And all he did was delayer. He went to every department, humbled himself. He didn't have them come to him. He went to them. He said, hey, marketing, what do you guys see out there? What's going on? Hey, sales team, what are you seeing out there? What's going on? Hey, HR, what do you see out there? What's going on? Every single week, he would touch base with every department, delayer himself, and basically say, hey, what are you guys seeing out there? What's going on? And then he went back to the high chair and began to make decisions that were going to impact the organization. But each one of his teammates knew that he heard them. He listened to them. He got them the resources that they needed. He encouraged them. He strengthened them. And so the reason he got Freight Quote from 18 million to 36 million, it wasn't about him. It was about us. And I'm telling you, that's the culture you want to build. You want to have a team where your teammates will run through a wall for you. Right now, my college coach, I would run through a wall for him. Why? Because he helped me reach my potential. He helped my dreams come true, and he helped me get to the NBA. So I'm committed, I'm loyal, and I would tell anybody, go play for Clem Haskins. Why? He turns boys into men. Go to my father's high school. Why? Because he produces high achievers. I've had other leaders I wouldn't say that about. I've had other leaders I don't feel that strongly about. But when you've been transformed through somebody's leadership, you're committed, you're loyal, and you get results.
But that's right there. That's the point, isn't it? That you've been great leadership transforms those you lead. And people say, well, yeah, a good leader brings out your potential. No, I don't. I think if you bring out the potential, you've done a half job. It's beyond potential. It's a transformation. It's a new being. My analogy often is the caterpillar and the butterfly are different animals. It didn't reach its potential. Its potential melted away and it transformed into a completely different creature. And as leaders, our job is to transform people into something they haven't even seen yet. As a leader, as a mentor, I always say, my job is to see in you what you cannot see, to hold that vision for you so solid, to kick your ass if I need to get you to it. But when you get to it, I will stop holding it. I will only hold it for you until you can hold it. But I'm going to hold it even when you go, but I'm not that. Yeah. No, but I don't have that potential. I don't care about your potential. Potential is irrelevant. What are you going to step into? What are you going to transform into? Because I know I am not even the potential of who I was in my 20s. I'm a completely different man than I was even in my 40s. I mean, it's that constant evolving, and that we as leaders have got to do that for our people. But at the same time, I want to say this, stuff happens and it throws a wrench in it. In this, at a present time, we've got the pandemic. There could be a million things. Back in 2008, there was the recession. There's all kinds of things. And this is my language. My language is when those things happen, they either define or refine you. If they define you, then you get stuck. If they refine you, they polish off the rough edges. And I know that in your first game in your senior year, you broke your foot, which would be a pretty good indicator for most people. It was like, okay, hang up your socks, off you go get yourself a nice job. Talk to us a bit about confronting that thing that could have taken you out, that you could have easily said, I'm done, but you didn't.
Adversity will increase your value. Up until that point, I had never been seriously injured. And that's just one of the hazards of doing business as an athlete. You're going to get hurt. And our coach would always tell us, hey, look, if you get hurt, work hard in your rehab. just work hard in your rehab and get back on the court. So I broke my foot. It was devastating. I'm not going to lie. I'd never been hurt before. It was my senior year. I hadn't started the previous years, and that was a preseason All Big Ten selection, which meant if I just had one good year and stayed healthy, I would have walked right into the NBA, a first-round pick. So breaking my foot, was adversity, right? And I remember calling my dad, and he was like, "Hey, man, it happens. How long is rehab?" 6 weeks. He said, "Okay, cool. You'll be back for the Big Ten opener." Yeah, good point. So I attacked my rehab. When I got out of surgery, Doug, the trainer said, "Hey, go back to your dorm and get some rest." And I was like, "No, take me to the training room." Right out of surgery, I had crutches, I had a cast, I had a screw put in my foot. And what I did was symbolic. I had him tape my cast to the pedal, and I just went for a ride right out of surgery just to let myself know I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to quit. And he thought it was crazy. And I was like, I just got to do this. So right out of surgery, I was still kind of drugged up from the painkillers. We went right to the training room. He taped my cast to the pedal, and I worked out. And to me, I wanted to come out of surgery attacking rehab. And every day I would ride that bike, and I came back in better shape after I broke my foot than what I was in before I broke my foot. So adversity will increase your value if you let it. And I want to make one more point. We talked about swim and why people get emotional when they read the book, because a lot of leaders have forgot to mentor. And basically they stopped being a coach and they started being fruit inspectors. Well, he's no good, she's no good, he's no good, he's an idiot, she's an idiot. When the truth is, if you stop being a fruit inspector and start being a coach, that's the first step in transforming your organization, because the truth is, it's your job as the leader to help your people reach their potential. You chose them, right? You selected them. Go make them work. And that is the truth. Because if we're going to be fruit inspectors, that's very expensive. High turnover, attrition, apathy, low engagement. To me, that is not their fault. That is your fault. When you are a great leader, your team will run through a wall for you. If you have a lot of turnover, a lot of apathy, there is something wrong with you and your leadership. See, in sports, Doug, what is different? When the team is bad, they fire the coach. In business, when businesses struggle, the coach gets to fire the players. I don't like that.
Actually, let me just put a pause on that, because that is a very good point that I think we miss. In sports, if the team fails, the coach is fired. Right. In business, if the team fails, the players are fired.
That's right.
Wow. I never thought about it that way. That's really good, Walter. So, there's you don't know this about me, but when I studied theological studies, one of the things I studied was Judges, the period in biblical text, Judges. And of that time, what people don't know is that if somebody was brought in front of a judge in biblical times for a crime, the judge would give them some small punishment initially and help them to give them a way to rehabilitate into the community. They had to serve the community. If the criminal repeated, he was given a sentence of time, complete isolation, prison. If he did repeated when he came out, again, the judge went to jail.
Wow. Wow, I didn't know
right?
that.
In Chinese medicine, ancient Chinese medicine, you paid the doctor let's say it's not really, but let's say 5 coins. 5 coins, and you paid the doctor 5 coins every week. I'm making it up. I don't know the exact amount of time or the amount of money, but you paid on a regular basis. But the minute you got sick, the doctor didn't get paid.
Wow.
Same principle.
Yes.
Meaning, so now I'm encouraged to make you better because that's how I get paid.
Right.
I don't get paid by you being sick, which is part of the system we have now. But it's a very similar idea. Both of those things are maybe an original idea of something you've just talked about that is embedded into sports. We accept it in sports. We recognize it in sports. And yet we don't do it in business. We fire the players.
That's right.
But very often those same players will go on and become superstars with a different coach. So that's a really key point that I want everybody to really grasp in there, because that's so powerful for us to all really truly get. Now, one of the things about that is, I know you and I talked about last time that there's a principle in sports that, because we're talking about the sports business side by side parallel understanding. One of the things in sports is we talked about was attacking in the off season. And in business, the off season is feed up, go for get a holiday, drink too many of those drinks with pineapples in them, eat too much. And then we'll come back in January and try and pick it up again. You and I were talking about that we're recording this on Thanksgiving, and that's in November. And pretty much a lot of business will shut down until first week of January, and they take it as an off season to eat too much, drink too much, and get kind of lazy. But you're all about attacking the off season like you do in sports. Help our listeners understand that a little bit.
Simple. It's just a different way to approach your work. And I learned this as an athlete, and it directly correlates to business. In your off season as an athlete, you compete at a high level for about 7 months. And as soon as the industry shuts down, right, we crown a champion. We enter our off season, and that year's over. That season is literally put into the books, and everyone has a chance to win a championship the next year. So what you do in the off season is going to dictate if you are the champion the next year. So every individual player typically has an exit interview with the coach, and the coach says, hey, next year you got to gain 10 pounds and get stronger, or next year you got to lose 10 pounds, or next year you got to work on your passing, your dribbling, or next year you got to become a better defender. And it's up to you as an individual to really attack your off season. And you rest for a week or two, let your body heal up. Some guys have surgery. So I believe in a vacation, just totally vegging and disconnecting. But what happens after you let your body heal and you rest a little bit, you start working at your work. And you work differently. In fact, the off season is most athletes work harder to lose 10 pounds, gain 10 pounds, or whatever the case may be. But the goal of the off season is transformation. The goal of the off season is to come back next year totally transformed and more effective and having greater impact. And so for me, I was voted most improved player every year in college because I didn't start in college. I would sit down with my coach, Dove, and I would say, Coach, what do I need to do to play in the NBA? The first time I asked this question, he chuckled. He said, son, you don't play for me. But this is what I told him. I'm going to become somebody different. Next year, I'm going to become somebody different. So in the business world. Again,
not potential, transformation.
Transformation, absolutely. So how do you transform a company, right? Like if you're in a market share position in a slot, what is your strategy to transform, right? What is your strategy to get your organization to the next level? When are we going to really break down and take a look at our marketing? When are we going to really look down and look at our pipeline and how do we prospect clients and how do we close deals? Do we have good follow-up? Is our CRM good, right? Do we have a good sales strategy, sales technique? Because nothing happens until something sold. So when I coach a company, the first thing I look is their sales function. Is your selling strategy working? Because that's your engine that drives. And sometimes most companies just need a bigger engine. If nothing happens until something is sold, let's fix sales first, right? Because the revenue will be there if we fix sales first. But maybe it's a brand issue. Okay, maybe we're not priced right. The truth is in business, we solve problems, but we all solve problems at different price points. Right? Ritz-Carlton solves a problem at a different price point than, say, a Courtyard Marriott. Solving the same problem, different price point. Some companies have a mismatch with what problem they're trying to solve at the wrong price point. Or maybe they don't fit into a price point because some buyers, they want high end. They want the best that money can buy. Some buyers, they want cheap as possible. Okay, some buyers want value, want quality. If you don't fit into one of those categories, you might be losing the game, not because you're not playing hard, because you haven't fit into a predetermined slot that people buy from. There are so many things to look at in your off season that can transform your company. Most small business owners especially are so busy being busy, they have no time to be productive. And the difference between being busy and being productive is transformation. An off season allows you to transform. It's a gift of time where you don't work in your business, you work on your business. And if you don't pull away, it's going to be really hard to really have exponential growth or exponential improvement. When you go to a pro event and you look at the athletes and you look at the size and the athletic ability, the precision, it's because these guys are training all year round. And then in the off season, they kick it up a notch. And so when I got into business, Doug, I started working for 3 years. Before I knew it, I was dependent on coffee. I felt lethargic. I was kind of burnt out. I looked at my wife and I was like, babe, I know better than this. I need an off season. And she goes, well, this is not sports. I said, look, babe, I know we don't get 5 months off, but between Thanksgiving and the New Year, we slow down a little bit. It's time for us to work on our business and not in our business. And we started to break down everything, our marketing, our branding, our promo videos, our content. And before we knew it, we would come out of off seasons with a strategy that was new and improved. And every year we got exponentially better. Within 3 years, I doubled my MBA income. Now I'm a Hall of Fame speaker. Why? Because of the off season. And this coronavirus, this COVID-19 was another gift of time. We had a bunch of trainings that were half-baked. And Dove, I do about 100 keynotes a year around the world, Turkey, Germany, all over the US, Canada, Latin America, Mexico. I'm on the road so much, I didn't have time to get to finish off these trainings. And all of a sudden, COVID-19 hits. And I'm like, hey, babe, let's finish that teamwork training. Hey, babe, let's finish that assessment. Hey, let's start working on a new book. Let's launch the foundation. All that stuff we've been talking about. This coronavirus is a huge gift of time. It's the off season we've been waiting for. So when we come out of COVID-19, as this vaccine begins to circulate around the globe and we get back to this new normal, we're going to have bigger capacity. We're going to be bigger, stronger, and faster, just like I remember as a pro athlete.
Yeah, as I said, I think that it's a values pause. It gives us the opportunity to evaluate, am I operating out of my values or not? Am I aligned with my values? Am I doing what works inside of the organization? And it has given us the opportunity to really, as you said, test the metal and find out whether we have the agility that we need in order to grow as businesses. And, in talking about attacking the off season, I get that. And I'm certain that you bang up against this all the time, which is FOMO. If I have an off season, then FOMO comes up, fear of missing out, right? Oh my God, I can't do that. I'll miss out. I can't take my foot off the pedal. I'll miss out. Now, you and I both know, and I think even the people who would say that understand that they'll probably get better if they take that break. As a great, really close friend of mine says, because I'm a highly creative person. And he says, yeah, but you're never going to create at your best when your face is against the window, meaning, you're just pushed up against it the entire time. You got to back off so you can see the vista. And we all agree with that. We all go, oh yeah, that's true. And then we all shove our faces back at the window. Right. So how do you address somebody who is in that place, agrees with you? Yes, I understand this. I got to create an off season, but I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to step away. I have anxiety about that. I have a fear of missing out. And on top of it, it doesn't seem possible, even though I get it.
Well, a lot of people are addicted to busy. And,
Yep.
By being busy, they really feel like they're accomplishing something. And the truth is, according to the World Health Organization, burnout is a mental health condition. And about 67% of professionals in the market today are burnt out. And so you think you're working hard, right? You think you're being productive. You think you're getting stuff done, but you're really operating with the empty tank. And I want to answer it this way by a hockey great, Wayne Gretzky. Someone asked him, Wayne Gretzky, how did you become the greatest hockey player ever? Simple. I hang up my skates in the summertime and I get away from playing hockey. Here's the truth. You couldn't play in the NFL for 12 months. You couldn't play in the NHL for 12 months. You can't compete at a high level mentally and physically for 12 months and think your body's going to be able to hold up. And the truth is, we get into the business world and we really try to grind for 12 months. It's not realistic. It's not even logical. It makes absolutely no sense. If you trust the process, okay? If you trust that if you take this off season, you're still working, okay? Here's the truth. You're still working. You're just working differently. You're positioning yourself to stop being busy and to start to get that exponential growth. And here's the first thing we do when we take our clients through an off-season experience. The first thing we do, Doug, is celebrate. After you had a great season, you celebrate. I was on a corporate jet with one of my biggest clients. He wrote the agenda down for his next meeting in the fourth quarter at the end of the year. This is last year this time. And he says, hey, look, take a look at my agenda. Let me know what you think. He handed me the agenda, Dove, and it was more work. He was about to grind his people more. I said, Peter, what kind of year did you have this year? We had a record year. I says, okay, you had a record year. Okay, you've been driving your people all year. You've been pushing your people all year. They delivered. And you mean to tell me your fourth quarter meeting to end the year is going to be more grinding? I said, you played high school football? He said, oh, yeah, because he had told me about his football team. Peter Cancro, founder of Jersey Mike's Hub. I said, Peter, was your football team pretty good? He said, yeah, we had a couple of good seasons. I said, when you had a really good season, what did you guys do as soon as the season ended? He just slid back in his chair and he said, celebrate. I said, Peter, that's what we got to do. So this is what we did, Dove. We still had the 4-day conference. And for 3 days, we sipped on the best bourbon. We smoked the greatest cigars. He bought all the women a nice trinket, a nice gift, a nice purse. And we celebrated for 3 days. But on the fourth day, I facilitated a session and we called it the power of what if. We asked every executive and every multi-unit franchisee, what are the 2 things you think the Jersey Mike's needs to do next year to get this thing to the next level? We've celebrated, guys, okay? We've had great fun, but celebration is over. Now it's time to kick it up a notch. Now it's time to get to the next level. What do you think are the top 2 things we need to do as an organization that's going to get it to the next level? Everyone filled out the paperwork. I got a stack of papers, Doug, and I handed them to Peter Cancro. And I said, look, buddy, your people celebrated. Those are some great ideas. I recommend you sort through those, okay? And you choose your power of 2. You can do it democratically, or you can make an executive decision. But your people are ready to get to that next level because things that they wrote on that paper were brutally honest. Hey, we celebrated. We had a great year. But we got to fix this. We got to fix that. We got to fix this. We got to fix that. We got to focus on this. We need to get better at that. That's what the off season does. It gives you a chance to celebrate, but more importantly, get laser-like focused on what do we need to do to get better. In sports, even if you win a championship, even if you win it all, you still are going to try and get better. You're still going to tweak the machine. You're still going to try and have continuous improvement because that's what you do in sports. And so when I got into the business world, I saw people talking about it, Dove. I saw a lot of lip service, but I didn't really see it happening. And so that's why we created the off-season concept. And I was like, hey, guys, I learned something in sports that took me from being a reserve in college to an NBA starter. Think about that transformation. And that's the word. I'm glad you highlighted that word, Dove. That's what this is about. Off-season is about transformation. I saw it happen for me in sports. A college reserve to an NBA starter, even though I broke my foot twice my final year in college. So when I left sports, I had no money. I had no work experience. I had no skill set. We launched the company. I didn't know anything about business. But in our off-season, I learned how to market. In our off-season, I learned how to sell. In our off-season, I learned how to brand build. In my off-season, I learned how to write books and create curriculum, build assessments. Now, I can sit in front of anyone in the world, and I can consult at a level very few can because everything I learned in sports has direct correlation to the competitive business environment. But a leader's job is to be the coach. So in my college career, in the NBA, my coaches would sit each and every player down and say, in your off season, I need you to do this so that next year you can be exponentially better. And if every player takes it upon themselves, imagine your sales teams getting 10% better, your marketing department getting 10% better, your R&D getting 10% better, your board getting 10% better. How about you, Mr. CEO or Mrs. CEO? What if you get 10% better? And here's the truth. Most business leaders go home talking about their people, but I want to remind you that your people get to go home and talk about you. Stop being a fruit inspector and start being a coach. Your off season is a chance. It's an opportunity to transform your culture, to transform your sales, to transform your teamwork, chemistry, collaboration, product. It is a chance to not work in your business, but to work on your business so that you can have continuous improvement each and every year.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. But the challenge is, of course, as I said, that I think that most people are in busyness. They're not in business, right? They're in busyness, not business. And the challenge with that is that neurologically, it's very addictive.
Yes.
And so people are mainlining busy. Right? That's one of the things I speak about is people are mainlining busy. They're not mainlining productive. They're not mainlining innovation. They're not mainlining agility. They're mainlining busy. And it's a hard drug to recover from. It's a hard drug to come back from. And, you know, as I say to the leaders I work with, it's a hard drug to come off. And you have to understand, if you were looking at a friend who was a cocaine addict or heroin addict or some other kind of drug, you would see withdrawal. You would be patient with them because they want to come off. And you're going to have to do that with yourself, because you're going to go through withdrawal when you're confronted by this drug leaving your system, the adrenal drug of busy that has all your endorphins tied into your adrenals, where you're fried constantly and exhausted, but you can't think creatively, you can't think innovatively, you can't be that level of agile that is so needed. And one of the things you talk about that I like is, and I really like you to sort of help our listeners understand it, which is idiot proofing your business. You talked about idiot proofing leaders so that they can idiot proof their business. How do you idiot proof a leader?
Great question. You know, to me, an organization is going to rise to the expectation of a leader. And I remember my first NBA team, I sat down, I'm signing my first NBA contract, and the general manager says, Walter, this is going to be a tough year. We're going to lose, and we're going to lose a lot. Dove, I could not believe what I was hearing. We had not even had practice yet. He made it okay to lose. He made it okay to lose. He gave me permission to be okay losing. We're going to lose, and we're going to lose a lot. Guess what happened? We lost, and we lost a lot. I said it earlier, right? Great leaders build confidence and set expectation. So let's talk about building confidence. You know, many leaders, the only time they really engage their team is when they screwed up or when they got to hold somebody accountable. Are you going to tell them when they're doing wrong? If that is you as a leader, that is not bright. And I think that falls into the idiot category, because every time I see your cell number or every time I get an email, the only time you talk to me is when I screw up, right? That's the only time that you bring me into my office. You never tell me about all the times I hit my quota, I hit my numbers, I did great things for the clients. I only hear from you when I make a mistake. Wow, thank you, right? I appreciate that. The reason why we celebrate, Dove, let's go back to that. The reason why you celebrate with your team, because everyone wants a sense of accomplishment.
Of course,
right? If you keep driving your team, if you keep driving them, and when they hit the goal, you don't celebrate. When they hit the goal, you don't acknowledge them. You just keep driving, and then you wonder why there's so much turnover, and then you're harassing HR that they're doing something wrong. No, you don't understand the human psychology. You don't understand the human spirit. I often do this with business leaders. I ask them a simple question, Doug. When you were growing up, who was your favorite teacher and why? If I could just get them to sit there long enough and really to think outside of their own personal desires, I'm able to touch them at an emotional level. And many times it gets emotional and they'll talk about their first boss, at the ice cream parlor when they were 16. They'll talk about their football coach or their track coach. I had one CEO was in tears and he talked about he couldn't read and he was a great athlete. And so they kind of passed him through school. His teacher in the 6th grade realized he couldn't read and he got confronted by the teacher and he was just defensive and he was embarrassed. And she says, look,
Sure.
before you leave my class, you're going to know how to read. Come to find out he was dyslexic, right? The whole time he thought he was not smart and he didn't want to try and read because it just was just too frustrating. And he got diagnosed as dyslexic. And through his emotions, he was like, you know what, that teacher changed my life. That teacher transformed me. And so my question is, if you had someone transform your life and you're emotional and just forever thankful and forever appreciative, you got 1,000 people who are looking for you to transform their lives. You got 200 people. You have a chance to become that person. And if I go around this company, if I go to each department, and if I ask them about their favorite leader, their favorite boss, how many people in this building are going to say you? How many people are in this building going to choose you? And if we voted on leader, right? If we all got a chance to vote on who's the CEO of this company, would they still choose you? I know you got the title. I know you got hired. I know you got appointed. The greatest leaders, can we be honest, Doug, lead nonprofit organizations. People want to be there. They want to be there, not because they have to be there.
Yeah.
Because a lot of leaders lead out of fear and authority instead of leading really out of respect, right?
Serving.
Not rulership and dictatorship, right?
Yep.
And so great leaders, people will run through a wall for you. And if that's not your culture, that's not HR's fault. That is your fault. Stop waiting for people to serve you, and you got to become the servant. That's why when people read Swim, the star of the book is a guy named Drew, and he had some issues. He wasn't perfect, but he was a great leader because he understood he wasn't perfect. And since he understood he wasn't perfect, he was a really great coach and not a fruit inspector. So the arrogance of a leader who think you're God's gift to business and you're just so brilliant and everybody else is an idiot, you're never going to be a good coach because you're just so smart and everybody else is so dumb. You're just trying to find people as smart as you. Here's the truth. If I know I got flaws, if I know I got weaknesses, it is so easy for me to delayer. It is so easy for me to really build a true, sincere, peer-to-peer relationship. Even though I got the title, even though I get the salary, even though I'm the boss, I don't need to constantly remind you. I don't need to constantly put you in your place. The truth is, teamwork is about us. And that's what the book Swim is about. The leader created a great company with broken people. Everyone he hired was flawed and he knew it. But through his training and development, through his support, he kicked the competition's butt because together, even though we're all flawed individuals, if you're strong where I'm weak, and if I'm weak where you're strong, together we can be perfect. So imagine that, Doug. A great leader can take a bunch of imperfect people, coach them up, and make a perfect team.
Absolutely. I love that. Thank you. As we come towards the end of this show, I want to ask you two things. First, secondly, I'll ask you to tell us where people can find out more about you and all your wonderful resources, including Swim, the new book. But before we go to that, one of the questions I love to ask at the end is, all this is very nice. And the problem with podcasts, although this is now the most popular media for this kind of thing, the problem is that most people are doing it while they're on the treadmill or on the bike or they're doing something else. It's a secondary entertainment. And I always want our listeners, our viewers, to go away with a ton of value. And so what I would love to know from you is, what is something very practical, preferably simple, that our viewer, our listener can go away and do in the next 24 hours, maybe even sooner, go away and just do, that will allow them to implement a lot of what it is that you've shared here today, or within the context of Swim? Obviously, the recommendation is go buy Swim and start reading it. But
Yeah.
Besides that, what would you say? Start doing this now. What would that be?
Great. Depending on the size of your organization, what I would do is delayer and create a strategy that periodically that you're saying thank you and just checking in on your teammates. It could be a department. It could be the leader of the department. Always say thank you and always just ask them what they think. What do they see? Because the truth is, stop putting all the pressure on you to be the brilliant one. You have other teammates that are working and competing in the same industry as you. And if you really do a good job listening, it will really position you to be a better leader because your teammates have insight. Why? Because they're selling every day to the client. They have insight. Or they're marketing every day to the client. They have insight. Or they're hearing about the competition because they have insight. The truth is, I've seen great leaders. They delayer. They say thank you, and they're always communicating with their team. Communication. We do a lot of teamwork training here because when I left Sports Dove, I was blown away that even if you go in the bookstore, the ratio of leadership content to teamwork content is abysmal. And the truth is, as a leader, your job is to build a high-performing team. And we created a blueprint, a methodology called iTeam that really helped leaders build a high-performing team by understanding their personnel and their teammates. And we call it work expressions, right? When you're on the basketball court, you play your game, right? And everybody's game is a little different. Some guys like to shoot, some guys like to play defense, some guys like to block shots. So when I got into business, I was like, what's my game? Man, I love to innovate and I love to improve stuff, right? So we coined the phrase work expressions. There's 5 of them. And we built a whole teamwork methodology to equip business leaders with more than just personality profiles and more than just job functions. How does your CFO express him or herself? How does your general manager express him and herself when she's competing at work? And so just understanding your team, having those conversations, use resources, right? Read books, be better leaders. But the bottom line, to kind of sum all that up, if you can humble yourself enough to just say thank you, right? On a consistent basis, sincerely, to as many people in your organization as you can, and simply ask them what they think. Those 2 action steps, Dove, honestly, could be just as powerful as an off season.
Well, exactly. Those 2 things, simple as they are, and that's why I love asking that question at the end. Those are the things that will actually transform your business right now. You can go away and transform your business right now by just taking those steps. So thank you so much for that, Walter.
Thank you.
As we finish up, please tell our viewers, our listeners, where they can find out more about you and all your wonderful resources and the new book, Swim, and all the other things that you've got.
Got it. Thank you, Doug. Most things are housed at walterbond.com, just walterbond.com. But we have a special website for our off-season clients. It's called offseasonplan.com. That's offseasonplan.com because
plan or planned?
Plan.
PLAN.
Yeah, offseasonplan.com. Okay. Because business leaders need it, especially small businesses, right? Who have just been grinding and everyone's wearing multiple hats, and it's easy to get burnt out. And from our experience, the World Health Organization, I said it earlier, and it's true, burnout is a mental health condition, and about 67% of professionals are burnt out. And I would imagine the leader is even more burnt out than the employee. And unfortunately, to your message earlier, Dove, that busyness is an addiction. Mm-hmm. And I think that our lion's share of our business leaders are actually burnt out. They won't admit it, right? Because they work so hard and the ego gets in the way. But if you're operating in a burnt out state, just like a tree, if you look at a tree that's not growing, we all know something's wrong with it. It's not enough sun. It's too much water, not enough water. We can look at a bush or a tree and figure out what do we need to do to get this tree or bush growing again. And the truth is, if your business is not growing, something is wrong. I don't care how confident you are. I don't care how much success you've had in the past. If your company's not growing, something is wrong. And burnout could be the biggest reason. So why not take an off season? Why not hire us? Why not? We have a do-it-yourself version where we take you through a step-by-step process on how to not work in your business, but to work on your business so you can have transformation. Dove, I've never had a real job. Within 3 years, I doubled my MBA income. People thought I was crazy. My whole goal with my father in high school, in that car when I flunked out of high school, my father said, write your goals down, son, and write goals that create pressure. I said, Dad, at 17 years old, this is what I said, Dove, I'm going to play in the NBA. That's pressure. You got to be one of the top 450 basketball players in the world. And I said, Dad, I'm going to graduate college in 4 years. Pressure, because it's a full-time job to be an athlete. But this is what I said, Dove. Dad, when I'm done playing professional basketball, I'm going to make more money in business than I did in sports. Pressure. I'm going to play in the NBA, graduate in 4 years, and make more money in business than I did in sports. And we were able to achieve it all by taking off-season breaks and not working in our business, but working on our business. So walterbond.com, we support business leaders and executives all over the world. And I'm telling you, the off-season break can heal you from burnout, and it can really get your tree. Because a business to me, Dove, is just like a tree. If your tree is not growing, something is wrong. Take an off-season break and figure out, is it your marketing that's broken? Is it your brand that's broken? Is it your product mix that is broken? Is it your team that is broken? In sports stuff, you get immediate feedback. If your team loses, you know your team's not good. If your team is 6-0, you're like, hey, our team is 6-0. Immediate feedback. In business, we don't get immediate feedback, and we keep bad teams together. And companies just call it this business. No, if your team is not good, let's fix it. What happened to BlackBerry, right? Let's think about that. What happened to BlackBerry? I'm going to tell you what happened to BlackBerry. Something was wrong with their team. They launched a whole category called the smartphone. And within 10 years, they're obsolete. Within 10 years, they're not even around anymore. Come on. Something was wrong with their team. If they could have taken the offseason 9 years ago, 8 years ago, maybe they could have maintained that position in the smartphone category instead of totally being eliminated. So my point is, you might be on top now. You might be winning now. Even if you're winning a championship, Dove, you still need to take an off season because we got to constantly evolve. We have to constantly innovate. And I got a buddy of mine who called on BlackBerry. And through our teamwork methodology, we have a role on a team called an improver. And we teach companies how to fill out your team in balance with innovators, initiators, instigators, implementers, and improvers. When I gave him our methodology on teamwork, this guy who sits on 6 corporate boards said, Walter, I know what happened to BlackBerry. They had innovators, but they didn't have improvers. That's where they missed it. They didn't have improvers. I'm an athlete. If you don't have point guards, you got to go and get one. If you don't have a quarterback, you got to go and get one.
You got to have everybody.
You don't have improvers, duh. You got to go get them. But I got to be able to teach business leaders our blueprint on how you build a high-performing team.
Walter, it's been a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. We make sure that we send people over to walterbond.com. And as I said, we will make sure that we post all of the links in the show notes. And for you, dear listener, remember that you can hang out with other conscious leaders. You can chat about this episode or any past episodes inside of our LinkedIn and Facebook groups. Just look for the Leadership and Loyalty podcast. It doesn't matter how successful you are. If your employees and your customers don't understand what gives your company meaning, you're just working at a fraction of your capability. To find out how you can hire me, Dov Baron, as a speaker or leadership strategist or executive advisor for yourself or your organization, simply go to dovbaron.com, because unified meaning, or as we call it, finding a dragonfire, is the one single monolithic difference between mediocrity and greatness in all individuals and companies. We want to thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. Till next time, stay curious, my friend. Stay curious about the power of taking an off season to work on, not in, your business. I'm Dov Baron. I'm here to assist you tapping into your dragon fire to reach that next level of clarity, focus, purpose, and profit in your business, your life, and your leadership impact. And I am out.